Hi guys, so today's video is going to be another video in my social anxiety survival guide series. Today I'm going to be talking about getting and having a job with social anxiety. I've done a number of these videos over the years, but each year I gain more experience, more tips. If you want to see the first episode in this series, the link will be down below. First, I'm just going to give like a quick history about me so that you kind of understand where some of these tips are coming from. So I've been working for the last 4 years. I've had a couple of different jobs in a couple of different areas. My first job though was by far the worst. I worked at Superstore, so it's kind of like Walmart. I'm super busy and I was a cashier. I only lasted at that job for like 3 months and I didn't even give my notice. I just one day got there and I just could not go in. I called my mom and I'm like, I don't want to go in. I just can't do it. And so eventually what I did was I went in and I told them, hi, I'm supposed to start like 5 minutes ago, but I can't come today. And she was like, okay. And then I never went back. I also had my mom call and quit for me. So I have grown a lot since then. I actually worked at the same job for over 2 years and I was a team lead. So like sort of like a supervisor role, which I never thought ever would be possible. So there's some like background. So first I'm going to talk about like getting a job in the interview process. I would first suggest looking for jobs that have titles such as warehouse, order picker, factory, production worker, packager, things like that, because those will be less customer based. My last job was at a bakery like factory, so there was no customers that came to that building. So that's, I think, one reason that I really like thrived in that environment is because there was 0 customers. That way you just need to become familiar and get comfortable with just your coworkers, and then it's those people every day and you don't have to deal with customers like that you're not comfortable with and don't know. Okay, so starting with the interview, I think I've done like 8 interviews in my lifetime and I was offered the job every time. I still don't understand, but I think it's because I have mastered like just a couple of key tips and I would like to share them with you. My first thing that I'll say is the person that is in that interview is not the person that they're going to be receiving and getting, not the person that I actually am. I just think of the ideal candidate, I think of who they want, and I'm like, let's just pretend to be that for the 15 minutes or whatever that I'm talking to them. A number one tip that I have is if your hands get very sweaty like mine do, especially if I'm holding like my phone or my wallet or my keys or something, I always make sure when I get there to make sure I like rub off my right hand and make sure that it's like not wet, as disgusting as that sounds, because usually you're gonna shake their hand and you don't want your hand to get sweaty. That would not be like a good first impression. So I'm always aware of that. When I feel like a handshake might be coming, I make sure that hand's empty and I like wipe it off on my pants. So a number one tip that I have is research the company that you're interviewing for. If they have a website, go to their website. Look at their social media, learn what they're about. If they have like a parent company or like sister companies, learn what those are and what they're called. I have been asked before what their parent company was. And then what I always like to do looking at the website and stuff is come up with a question to ask them. Typically in interviews they will ask you, do you have any questions for us? And I just don't like saying no, like it just seems uninterested, like I have an opportunity, I should use it. So one example is one time I was interviewing for this little like hotel motel like situation and I had previously looked on the website. So when I was like getting a tour of it, I said to the woman like, oh, I noticed on your website you had some cottages, where are those? And she seemed like so impressed that I had noticed that there was that, and it just shows that you're interested and you're taking the initiative and you know about the company. Also, something that I just remembered when I interviewed for Superstore, so it was my first ever interview. I was so nervous, but the lady was so nice. At the end of the interview, when she like, because she told me that I had the job right then, she was like, you would have a wonderful personality for a cashier. And I still like, I'm like, I am like the opposite of a cashier. Like I made her think that I was a good personality for a cashier for a couple minutes. So something else that I did over and over was practice interview questions. I know that sounds so obvious. Look up common interview questions and kind of get like a gist of an answer. I wouldn't over rehearse word by word what your answer is going to be. And if you don't have an answer for something or you need a second, just take a second to breathe, let your brain get oxygen and just think it through. I feel like a 5-second little pause where they can tell that you're thinking is better than just a dumb answer or one that you don't agree with or you're not happy with. I also usually try to plan something like mildly exciting afterwards, like Starbucks or fast food of some sort, just to kind of like look forward to. I also look forward to the thought of walking out the door. As I'm walking in it, I'm like, man, in just like 20 minutes or whatever, you'll be walking right out, it'll be done, and it won't matter how it went. You'll be leaving this building regardless. Okay, so now moving on to the tips for having a job and maintaining it and keeping it and managing it. So when it comes to coworkers, I think that a first impression is really important. It will most likely be a forced first impression, but it's important because it will make a last. You need to make yourself approachable from day one. If you're shy and reserved and quiet day one and not, particularly friendly to people, then they're gonna just know, okay, this person is boring, quiet, doesn't want to talk, and that's just how you'll be remembered. But if you're super friendly and a little more outgoing, then they'll get more of an impression that you're approachable. I would also recommend ask tons of questions. It is way better to ask so many questions in the first week or something than not know and then it'd be too late to ask. I know in my last job when I worked at the bakery, there were some things that I didn't know 2 years into it, but it was just too late to ask, so I always had to just avoid it. So make sure you ask those questions early on, because nobody's gonna think that you're asking a dumb question in the first week. But if you've worked there for a little bit and then you finally need to ask the question, then it's gonna be, I would also early on ask your boss what their preferred form of communication is, if you need to get a hold of them for if you're gonna be late or if you're gonna not be there, because I've had times where I didn't know if I should call them. So that just is a whole bunch of extra added stress and anxiety if you're not sure if they will be bothered by a phone call and they'd prefer a text or they just want an email or something. Ask them that right off the bat, just so you know and you don't have to stress and worry about that. And moving into that, sick days. These are always very difficult to call in sick, especially if it's not with much notice or if you know that your staff are going to be, let down or you're going to put a burden on them. And if it's for mental health reasons, sometimes I don't think it's bad to explain and just say that you're very anxious and it would affect your work performance. You wouldn't be able to live up to your own standards and the company's standards if you were to come. I also think that's important to remember for yourself if you are not sure when you need to take a mental health day or a sick day for yourself. If you know that it's greatly going to affect your work and you're going to mess up or be distracted or not do as good of a job, it would probably be less of a burden on the company for you to just take the day off than come and mess things up and not be your best self. Okay, and now moving on to phone calls. The phone is still really, really difficult for me, but I did have a job where I had a boss that used to like to phone me all the time, and I'd text him and he'd call me back, and so I just I was forced to overcome it, and I still to this day can hardly talk on the phone with my mom, but with him it would be not a problem because I was just forced to, if that makes sense. But I know there's jobs, call center jobs, or if you have to call and make appointments with someone or something like that. Something I think that is important to remember when you're talking to strangers on the phone is that they could be just as anxious as you, but you don't know. There are so many people in this world that hate talking on the phone. And you also have to remember that if you slip up your words or mess up something, they're not going to remember that for the rest of their day. They're probably going to encounter other people in the day that mess up their words as well. So it's not going to stay in their minds. And if you're in a position where you're talking to this person that you're never even going to meet, I feel like that makes it even easier because it just doesn't matter. They don't know you, they're never going to know you. That's that. There's your only interaction. Something else, if you have to make a call and you're in the position where you're able to do this, calling someone that you're comfortable talking to first and even practicing can make it easier just because you're used to the environment of talking on the phone. I also find that if I'm smiling when I'm on the phone, I'm trying to be even more politer, and it's easier to play the role of the more polite person. I've been working about 3 years now where I've had no customers and just coworkers, and I love it. I've had some really good friendships with a lot of my coworkers. I've had some amazing coworkers. What I did to kind of become more close with my coworkers. It just, at the beginning, engage in casual small talk, fast, easy topics, just a quick how are you, or how was your weekend, or whatever, you know, just follow up on something that they had mentioned before, to become just more confident and comfortable with them. And the more and more that you do it, the more they will know that, okay, this person wants to talk, like they, you know, they're approachable, and people will start to have conversations with you. At least for me, the more I talk to like one particular person, the more my confidence grows with like each individual person, and the more my comfort level grows. Also, if your job is very communication based and you need to be talking to each other, being able to talk casually, personal wise, makes it a lot easier to do that. And then this is just the other category. So you need to talk to your boss about something and you're worried, whether it be like a vacation or a raise or just something casual or a problem with another coworker. If you're too nervous to just approach them and do it, I would definitely recommend scheduling an appointment with them, even if you want to email them and say, can we like have 5 minutes to talk tomorrow or whatever. That way they know and they're not just caught off guard when you talk to them about whatever it is. They're in the right frame of mind, and so you're more at ease that they know that you're going to have a conversation. If you're in a job where you have customers like a cashier or whatever, try to go out of your comfort zone more and more every day, because as bad as my job at Superstore was as a cashier, even in the 3 months my social skills and my confidence did work its way up more, and I was able to like have more more engaged conversations with customers instead of just like little one-word answers. It was very, very hard, but the more I pushed myself to talk to customers, every time I did it, I was like, okay, I did it, I lived, I'm able to do it, so why not do it more? And it just gets easier. And if you're feeling too overwhelmed to go in, because I have had so many days, like especially when I worked at Superstore, I would just sit in my car before my shift and just cry because I just didn't want to go in, or like before I leave just cry and cry. So I totally get that. I guess what I just had to keep doing was not only pushing myself to show that I could do it. Every time you go in when you're crying right before you've shown yourself, all right, I did that, like remember last time you did it, you went in there. And then something else I like to do is, if I'm feeling like really anxious before going in, I like to like identify which things I'm feeling anxious for. So if I know, oh, maybe I need to use this machine today that I'm not comfortable with, I identify it. I just focus on that thing instead of work itself. I promise that the more you push yourself, the more easier it will get. Just like anything, you know, riding a bike, the more times you get up and ride the bike, the farther you can go every time. And you don't just get on a bike and go, you get farther and farther each time. Same with walking. You didn't just start by taking 100 steps. You took 1 step and you fell, and then you got up and took 2 steps and you fell, you know? And the more you do things, the more you'll find it's easier to cope, and it's easier to feel comfortable and confident. That's the one word that like I really never thought that I'd feel confident or leave a conversation feeling confident and be like, okay, wow, I did, like that was a good job or whatever. But I have that now. Like I literally will leave things being like, I was like, never thought I was capable of being that confident. It's only because I just slowly worked my way up to bigger and bigger things. Anyway, that is today's video. I hope that it was somewhat helpful for you, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!